I have a lot of people who come in my office and ask me about intermittent fasting. And if you don't take anything away from today, make sure you remember that when your fasting window is open, you gotta eat. Welcome back to the Chef Boy RDN podcast with your host, the Chef Boy RDN. Yes, this is the 10th episode. We are in double digits officially, people. This is huge. Most podcasts don't make it past episode 3, and we are at episode 10. Um, it's been a fun journey. I think that I have been growing and learning a lot when it comes to podcasting and what makes sense and what doesn't. And I also hope that you've been growing and learning as you've been listening to all of the information that I have to provide. It's a lot of research that goes into this podcast, so I hope that you really are learning something and you are being able to take something away. I also hope you're having some fun. You're enjoying it. It's a little 30-minute show. Don't take too long. Nice little drive to work or drive home. And yeah, just sit back, enjoy, learn something. For this episode, we will be talking about intermittent fasting. Now, when it comes to intermittent fasting, we're going to talk about the benefits. We're going to talk about the myths that a lot of people hear when it comes to intermittent fasting. We're also definitely going to talk about what breaks a fast. Of course, we're going to do Chef Boy RDN Tries It, as well as talk about the vitamin of the week. This week, it is another mineral, actually an electrolyte, one of my favorites to talk about. So don't change the channel. All this coming up on the Chef Boy RDN podcast. I want to talk first about some of the common types of intermittent fasting. So basically what intermittent fasting is it is anytime you are going for a prolonged period of time throughout the day or maybe throughout the week that you are not eating. Okay. And so this is called an intermittent fast. Now it's intermittent because it happens semi-consecutively or consecutively, and for those time periods you are fasting, right? And so a lot of people will do this for various reasons, which we'll get into next. But the most common types, one of the most common one is what they call 16-8. And basically you are fasting for 16 hours a day, and then you have an eating window for 8 hours a day. Now, everybody in this world has an eating window. Okay. All the eating window is the first meal that you have of the day to the last meal that you have of the day. In general, it's recommended that you eat within at least a 12-hour window. If you can get it down to 10, even better. That's outside of intermittent fasting. So, for example, if you have your first meal at 8 a.m., you want to try to have that last meal by like 8 p.m. But intermittent fasting takes it a step further where you have very strict times of when you start to eat and when you are done eating. So for a 16-10, let's say you fast and your eating window opens up at 12 p.m. noontime. You will eat from 12 all the way to 8 p.m. That's your 8-hour eating window. And when I say eat all the way through, I'm not saying like you're eating for 8 hours straight, but that's when you'll have your meals, right? At the end of that 8 hours at 8 p.m., once your meal is finished, you're done for the day until 12 p.m. the next day. That's pretty much how it works. So that's a 16-8. Sometimes people will do a 1 day or 1 meal a day fast where it is exactly what it sounds like. They will only eat 1 meal a day. And most people will have that kind of time oriented as well. So they might eat that 1 meal around 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. It's usually kind of a midday meal when they're done. Another one is that's becoming more famous is a 18-6, right? So we got a 16-8. A 18-6 is kind of the same thing. We're talking about a 24-hour day, and you would fast for 18 hours and then you eat within a 6-hour window. Another one is a 5-2. And the 5-2 is 5 days a week. You are eating regular. And then 2 days, and they're typically not consecutive. So it wouldn't be like a Saturday, Sunday. It'll be like a Saturday, Wednesday, or something like that. 2 days a week, you would do the intermittent fasting, or you might have a specific time you eat, or you can kind of reduce your calories for those 2 days. All of those kind of are different choices within that 5-2 fast. Now, let's go into the benefits of intermittent fasting. So I have it written down. So if you see me looking down, you already know I'm looking at my notes. Today, because it's been a day, I'm gonna be honest with you. We got our water here. We also got some coffee, just some black coffee. So the benefits. Now, the first benefit, there was actually a study done in Spain in 2025. And in this study, they found that the patients that were in this study who practiced time restricted eating, which is basically intermittent fasting, they actually lost 9 pounds within 3 months, and they were able to keep that 9 pounds off for at least a year. And so they had, of course, a control group who didn't do the intermittent fasting. And in comparison, they found that with the intermittent fasting group. Now, 9 pounds in 3 months, that may not sound like a lot to some people, but honestly, it's great weight loss, within 3 months. We often want instant weight loss, and we want instant gratification a lot of times, but sometimes it takes hard work and consistency. And so the good thing about intermittent fasting is if you stay consistent, a lot of times you will see a lot of these benefits. So that was number one. Second, there was a study in 2024, and they took about 108 patients, split them in half, and all of them had metabolic syndrome or some form of metabolic syndrome. So this is when your body metabolism is affected. So think insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes. All of these can be parts of some form of metabolic syndrome. So all of these people had some form of metabolic syndrome, and it was 108 of them. They split them in half. One half, they only had nutritional counseling. The other half had nutritional counseling and implemented intermittent fasting. And what they found was the group that implemented intermittent fasting, their hemoglobin A1C, which is a marker that we use to look at how high your blood sugar is over a 3-month period. And it's also a way that we're able to diagnose type 2 diabetes in general, right? It's one of the markers that we look at when it comes to diabetes. But they found that it actually was reduced by 0.10% in that group. They also experienced more weight loss without having any muscle loss, which is really good. So a lot of times, one of the downsides of like rapid weight loss, so when it comes to having like some type of bariatric surgery or taking bariatric shots like semaglutide, Ozempic, Trizipaglat, all those different things, right? When you have rapid weight loss, a lot of times if you're not careful and if you aren't monitoring it, you can lose a lot of muscle. So the good thing about this was they didn't lose muscle. Now, the third benefit is autophagy. So it actually helps with our cells in general. Now, when we talk about autophagy, what that basically is. So as I went back and watched this, I realized I was saying a bunch of nothing. But basically what autophagy is when a cell has organelles like the mitochondria and different things like that get old or mutated, it actually goes in and breaks those organelles down and turns them back into amino acids so that they can be reused in the cell to make other products. So it basically helps to keep the cell healthy and alive and thriving. When you are intermittent fasting, actually being in that fasted window, it helps to promote good autophagy. So that's really good. Number 4 is gut health. I talk a lot about gut health. Eventually, we are going to have a whole episode on the microbiome. We might have an episode on gut health in general. I mean, it's just so much to explore, and it's one of honestly my favorite topics to kind of look into. And I actually had a professor when I was in school who she was always talking about the microbiome. And for whatever reason, she would always call on me in class. And she would call on me and I would get to the answer, but just know that I was putting and piecing stuff together in my head. I didn't really know it, but I would get there. And so she would call on me and I'd be like, please stop calling on me. I do not know. But instead of me just saying I didn't know, I would come up with the answer. And usually it would be pretty close if it wasn't right. Most times it would be right. But if not right, it was close. But anyway, so gut health. Studies have actually shown that when you are intermittent fasting, it helps to increase the good gut bacteria, also helps to reduce the bad gut bacteria. It also strengthens the intestinal barrier, which is really good. And then the last thing it does is it strengthens or it restores tight junction proteins, which can prevent leaky gut. Leaky gut is a situation where, um, I mean, it's kind of what it sounds like, and it's not good for your body. So it helps to prevent all of those things. Number 5 is it actually helps to reduce inflammation. So it may reduce inflammation markers in the body, potentially lowering the risk of chronic disease. So it's very possible that it and likely that it does that. Number 6 is it also improves our cardiovascular health. And it does that by helping to reduce our blood pressure. It also helps to raise those HDLs, which is the good cholesterol. It lowers the LDLs, which is the bad cholesterol. And it helps with your triglyceride levels. So, all of that to say, with all of these benefits, if I'm being honest, I don't think intermittent fasting is a have to, but I do think that it's a good, viable option. So, when it comes to intermittent fasting, there are some myths. The first one that I hear a lot is people are scared about basically muscle breakdown. Like you'll lose muscle mass if you intermittent fast. And I could see how you get there, right? If you go prolonged periods of time without eating, basically starvation, we know that your body starts to catabolize, right? It starts to break down and it's basically trying to feed itself in a sense. So you will lose a lot of muscle mass in that way. But with intermittent fasting, because it is what we call short-term fast, right? It's not that long. You're not going super long without eating. It doesn't actually. The research shows that it doesn't mess with muscle protein synthesis, not in a big way. Um, Now, if you are doing prolonged fast, like 10-day fast or more, then yes, protein, muscle synthesis, it will reduce that and it'll start to affect proteins and muscles and start to break those down. So you do want to be careful with that. But if you're just doing a regular intermittent fast where you're doing a 16-8 or a 18-6, that is perfectly fine. When your body is using energy, the first thing that it goes for is your glucose, the sugar, right? It goes for the sugar. It uses that for energy. Then it goes for the glycogen stores. This is the sugar that is stored up in your muscles. Okay. Once those two things are depleted, the next thing it wants to do is it'll start to take the fat that's in your body and convert it into ketones and then use that for energy. So within that short term period, again, you are using ketones and you're using the sugar. So a lot of times you don't have to worry about that muscle breakdown. Now, the second thing that a lot of people think is you can kind of just eat whatever you want when it's intermittent fasting. And though that's not necessarily a myth, it's true. Like, you can eat whatever you want when you're intermittent fasting, but is that beneficial, right? So I always try to challenge people that even if you are intermittent fasting, when that eating window opens up, take the time prior to figure out what you want to do. Set yourself up for success. If you need to make your lunch or make your meals, that's perfectly fine. If you feel like you need to kind of figure out where you want to eat because you don't have time to cook, that's perfectly fine. But set yourself up for success. Try to get whole foods in there. So, grains, getting some vegetables, definitely vegetables, some meat. If you're a meat eater, you just want it to be whole foods. You could do some processed foods. That's perfectly fine. But if you are intermittent fasting and your window opens up and it's Chick-fil-A, Burger King, McDonald's, Five Guys, uh, all of those different types of places every time it opens up, even if you do get some of the benefits that we talked about, it's going to be very, very small. I actually saw a young lady who is a content creator, and she started intermittent fasting. Now, she is used to eating a large volume throughout the day in general. And so when she started intermittent fasting, she did a 16-8, so 16 hours of fasting, 8-hour window, and every meal was like a fast food meal. I appreciate the sentiment of her feeling the need to try to be healthier, right? But when it comes to health and going on a health journey, there has to be a healthy way to challenge yourself. And what I mean by that is push past just what you are comfortable with. Now, there's a level to it, right? You don't want to overdo it. We don't want to overdo anything, but there should be a healthy push. So if you are used to eating a lot and now you're condensing it into an 8-hour window and you're used to eating a lot of fast food, even if you still eat a lot of that fast food, maybe try to make at least 1 to 2 of those meals from scratch, or making sure that you pick a place that has more whole foods that you can indulge in, right? And then from there, keep challenging yourself. Turn that one meal that you're eating from home to 2 meals. Turn those 2 meals into 3. And before you know it, you have a lifestyle where you're eating in a window. So you got that out the way, but you also are eating less. Whole foods tend to be less calories in general overall. So if you are using intermittent fasting for weight management, you definitely want to try to focus on the whole foods. Okay, getting off that soapbox. And shout out to the young lady. I don't remember her name, but I think it's a great journey she's on. I just want her, I hope that she knows to continue to push herself, right? The biggest issue that people have when it comes to intermittent fasting that I see is when their eating window opens up, they do not eat enough. Y'all don't eat enough. So let me walk you through a scenario. Okay, let's go back to that starting to eat at 12 and then your eating window closes at 8 p.m. Okay, we were talking about that earlier. So you go, you fast, your window is from 12 to 8. 12 o'clock comes, you're like, you know what? I'm good. I drank some coffee. I don't need anything right now. So you really don't even start eating till maybe like 2 o'clock. Okay? 2 o'clock rolls around, you eat a fairly big meal. By 5 o'clock, you could eat again, but you're so proud of yourself that you're not necessarily super hungry that you just kind of linger and wait. And then you eat a second meal, maybe a snack, because you're like, I'm still not super hungry. It's 7 o'clock at this point. You eat that snack. 8 o'clock comes around, your window is closing, so you might try to hurry up and sneak in one other snack. By the time 10 o'clock comes, you're starving because you haven't properly fueled your body for the day. But you don't eat at 10 o'clock, right? So you wait until that next day to 12 o'clock again. And this cycle just keeps going. What I tell people is when your window opens up, try to eat. So we're talking about 8 hours, right? There should be at least 3 meals within those 8 hours. At 12 o'clock, you should have a meal. 12, 1, 2, 3, you should have another meal. 3, 4, 5, 6, you should have another meal. And in between those meals, you can have some snacks. Um, and then maybe one more snack before 8 o'clock comes. Now, these meals don't have to be meals where you are stuffing yourself, right? It could just be a regular meal, it could be a smaller meal, but you want to kind of consistently eat, because when you start and you open that window, when food goes down, that starts cranking your metabolism. You should eat a meal within um, 3 to 4 hours after that last meal to keep that metabolism going. If you go kind of past that, your metabolism starts to die back down because it hasn't had food in a minute. So within this 8 hour window, if you're eating every 3 hours, you get at least 3 meals in there, right? Because you start initially at 12, you eat another meal at 3, you eat another meal at 6. Um, you can go a little further in between those times, but if you kind of mark yourself to do that, then you can sneak some snacks in there as well, and you're keeping that metabolism higher for that period of time. Once that 8 hour window closes, that metabolism goes back down and you're good until 12 o'clock the next day. So when it comes to fasting, things that will break a fast, we got some of the obvious things, right? If you're eating calories, so let me back up. When it comes to breaking a fast, what we're talking about from a more scientific standpoint is if you are starting to crank up that metabolism, right? If you're sending something down that either causes an insulin spike or something that lets your body know that food has come down, that is going to break that fast, because your body stops doing all of those beneficial processes that the fast is beneficial for. Okay. So now, when it comes to breaking a fast, calories in general, it's pretty, if you eat something that has some calories to it, it's definitely going to break a fast. Okay. So that includes protein, any type of meat. Um, that also includes fats, avocados, butter, thing like that. Definitely includes carbs. Cakes, cookies, pies, but also vegetables, right? Those are also still carbs. Grains, all of those things are going to break your fast. But other things, when it comes to kind of the nuances of fast that will break your fast, a lot of people thought that artificial sweeteners originally didn't break a fast. So things like a Diet Coke or a Coke Zero, what we're finding out now is those things do still cause some type of insulin response. So with those, you definitely want to not drink those until that fast is over, because those will break a fast. Okay. And that's the same thing with if you are putting it in your coffee. In general, coffee additives, if it's added into the coffee, it's typically going to break the fast. So that's sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, that's cream, all the different syrups, the Starbucks, the barista, the home baristas, all them little syrups y'all got on the counter, that'll break your fast. So you definitely want to stay away from those when you are fasting. Tea, tea that is sweetened or that has additional additives into it can break a fast. And you have to be mindful, especially when it comes to herbal teas or herbal and fruit teas. If you're brewing it yourself, you got to think that when they put those dried fruits in there, some of the stuff that's actually leaking out into your water or leaching into your water as it's being brewed is some sugar. So you want to be mindful of that. That can also break your fast. Um, Bone broth. If you're drinking bone broth or any type of broth, veggie broth, whatever, that can also break your fast. So be mindful of that. Now, things that won't break your fast. Water. My best friend. Okay. Water will not break your fast. Black coffee. It's not my best friend, but pretty high on the friendship list. It definitely won't break your fast. Okay. Plain tea, just straight up black tea, green tea. Again, without all of like the different additives. If it's like a peach green tea, it's probably gonna break it fast. Okay. Um, Electrolyte drinks that are zero sugar, 0 calories, 0 artificial sweeteners. those also won't really break a fast. But you got to, again, be mindful of that because that gets really tricky. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to fast is who is the fast for? Okay, so we talked about a lot of the good benefits. Um, Fasting for gut health. At my job, we do have what we call a gut protocol. And with that, I've had a few people who've had scenarios where their gut just needed to take a break from eating. And so they would do like a 2-day fast just to give it a reset. This is something that, again, should be managed by some type of clinician, whether it's a dietitian, a nurse, a doctor, a GI health specialist, of course, or gastroenterologist, whatever you. But when it comes to intermittent fasting, there are a lot of people who definitely want to be really careful. Number one is going to be if you are pregnant. Pregnancy, you're feeding a whole nother human being. If you're hungry, you need to eat. So intermittent fasting is not something that I would recommend for that. What else? People who have historically battled with eating disorders, intermittent fasting probably isn't the best because, in a sense, it is a form of restriction. And so that can re trigger some of those old wounds when it comes to restricting. So, you know, I would just be very, very careful if you ever, suffer from an eating disorder or anything like that when it comes to intermittent fasting. Um, Anybody with health conditions or um, any forms of insulin resistance or something that deals with your metabolism overall, thyroids. I'm not saying that you shouldn't intermittent fast, but I am saying that before you do it, you definitely want to talk to your doctor and make sure that you are doing it in a safe and effective way. So we have another segment of Chef Boy RDN Tries It. And today I'm going to be trying these, but as I'm trying them, I'm going to be telling you about my experience with intermittent fasting. I intermittent fasted um, probably about, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. And I was doing it for a nice period of time. Like I did it for probably about a year or two. Where I was intermittent fasting throughout the day. But let's get into these. So these are Trader Joe's sour cream and onion flavored rings, and they're actually made from lentil and rice instead of like your traditional corn or wheat chip snack. So I wanted to try it, see how they go, and I haven't even opened them, so y'all know I'm trying this for the first time with y'all. This is good. Love it. So, growing up, I was a big Funyuns person. So, this is a great alternative for that. Has more of a crunch, more of a bite to it. Sour cream and onion, that flavor definitely comes through. Like it kind of tastes like the sour cream and onion chips, but it also has a Funyun element to it. So, these are good. I'm here for it. Solid A for me. And 24 pieces is a serving size. It's 130 calories per serving. Not bad at all. Saturated fat, could be better, but it's a chip. What do you expect? 4 grams of protein, not crazy high, but for a chip, that's pretty good. So let's kind of talk about intermittent fasting. So, like I said, I did it a few years ago, and when it came to intermittent fasting, what I found was I had to take my own advice. So I'm not telling you something that I didn't experience when I told the story about making sure that when your window opens, you eat because you'll be starving. Trust me, you'll be starving. That window gonna close, and you'll be looking at stuff that you ain't never ate in your cabinet. I'm up here thinking about, man, are walnuts really nasty? Did I really stop eating squash as a kid and I've never tried it as an adult? Maybe I should try it again. You know? Man. That cardboard over there almost looked like a piece of bread. Crazy thoughts, right? And so you just want to make sure that you eat during that time. I would do a 16-8, so I would fast for 16 hours a day and I would eat for 8. The other issue was at the time I was actually working at a restaurant. And so I had to figure out, and I was going to school. So I had to figure out the window in which I could realistically eat, because what would happen was I would do, like, let's say a 12-8, and for the first half of the day, I was kind of in school, and so I would have breaks where I could eat, but then I would have to be at work by like 3 o'clock, and then at 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock, 3 to like 5, it was kind of dry, but 5 to 8, it was go time. So I didn't have a lot of time to eat. So that's why I would end up not eating enough. It wasn't because I tried to not eat enough. It just happened that way. And I would find myself starving. And then you in a restaurant, it's 8 o'clock, you know, I mean, there it was a whole line of sauces, and I'm like, have I ever tried this sauce before? Maybe if I just, you know. So I had to make my eating window super early. I think I ended up doing like 8 o'clock. And what does that go to? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 to 4, right? And it started working out then, and I would get to work and I pretty much wouldn't eat from that point on. I would just be drinking water and stuff to stay hydrated because, it's a restaurant, so it gets hot. But overall, after I kind of got my stride, it was actually pretty easy to do. It's one of the things that it doesn't take as much effort in the long term. If you stay consistent, you just get used to it. And the other thing that I had to learn, because I'm a recovering all or nothing type of person, and when I say recovering, we're still really working on it, like really bad. And a lot of times for me, at the beginning, I made the mistake of being so strict that I would definitely undereat because something would happen and I wouldn't get a chance to have my second and third meal. Um, and I was just left starving until the next day. Whereas once I really got into it, I was like, well, you know what? It's been a long day. Today, we just going to have to break the fast. And you'll be surprised. Your body will tell you when you need to be a little more lenient on yourself than not. So a lot of times we're scared that we're going to go down a slippery slope of just falling off. But if you are truly being consistent with it and you are truly kind of making adjustments as need to, then you'll be fine. So that's everything on intermittent fasting. If you got a Trader Joe's close to you, definitely go try these out. Good little alternative, good little snack. And we are back for the vitamin of the week. So this week's vitamin is actually a mineral, and the mineral is going to be magnesium. So it's an electrolyte as well. Magnesium is important because it's involved in over 300 biochemical reactions in the body. It's also essential for muscle and nerve function. So it's very important. It's essential for energy production, ATP synthesis. I don't know why. Lately I've been going APT. I don't know what that's about, but it's ATP. Anyway, it's also good for blood pressure regulation, bone health, DNA, and protein synthesis. So magnesium, as you can tell, does a lot in the body. Now, where can you find magnesium? Well, I'm glad you asked. You can find it from leafy sources like spinach, Swiss chard, leafy greens. You can also find it in nuts and seeds, almonds, pumpkin seeds, things like that. Whole grains are going to have some magnesium in them. Legumes, which are your beans, peas, and lentils, those are also going to have magnesium. Avocados actually have magnesium in them. And then a fun place to get magnesium is going to be dark chocolate. 70% or higher, dark chocolate. It's definitely going to have some a good quality dark chocolate. It's going to have some magnesium in it. Now, the last place, or it's not the last place, there are other places, but the last place I want to highlight that you can get magnesium from is, of course, going to be from supplementation. Now, there are so many different forms of magnesium, so we are going to go through the different forms and what they all do. So get your pen and paper out, or make sure you mark this section, or however you want to do it. But this is all of the different types of magnesium and what you can use them for when it comes to supplementation. First, we have magnesium citrate. This one is probably the most famous one. And this one is actually good for constipation. It's good for helping you to go to the restroom. It is a diuretic, and it pulls water into the colon. And so when we get ready to use the restroom, the colon is the last place that our bodily functions go before they exit, right? And the colon is actually what absorbs that water back out so that your body can use it more right before it leaves. What magnesium citrate does is it kind of throws that water back in there. So if you ever take like magnesium citrate, you'll literally you'll hear water in your intestines. It's kind of crazy, but it's good for that. It's definitely gonna have you go. So be careful with that. And a laxative is meant for trying to move your bowels when you are constipated, and things like that. You definitely don't want to overuse those. So keep that in mind as well. Magnesium glycinate. This is the one that a lot of people use for anxiety, sleep, muscle relaxation. I actually have some in the cabinet that I'll use every now and again for sleep. I was using it, making what they call a sleepy girl mocktail, right? Where you take the magnesium powder and you mix it in with like a poppy and some cherry juice. Tart cherry juice promotes melatonin production in the body. And then the poppy is just for the flavor. And the magnesium helps to relax your muscles, soothe your mind, calm the anxiety, as well as just help promote good sleep. So try it. If you're not being able to sleep well, it's a great natural remedy to that. And it doesn't make you wake up feeling groggy. That's the other thing I like about magnesium glycinate. Magnesium oxide. So this one is cheap. It's pretty cheap. It's easy to find, but it has low absorption. So you definitely want to stay away from this supplement if you see the other ones. I will tell you the best one for increasing your magnesium in your body, like your magnesium stores, is going to be the magnesium glycinate. You also have magnesium maltate. This is good for muscle pain muscle pain and energy. You want to kind of be careful with this one though. It does kind of give you energy, so you definitely don't want to take this one before you get ready to go to bed. Magnesium threonate. This one is good for cognitive function. It actually passes the brain membrane barrier, and it helps to support good brain health. So that one's good for that. A lot of people will take it to help them focus and things like that. I've never taken it, so I don't really know how it really makes you feel, but that is what it's for. Then you got good old classic magnesium sulfate. If you don't know what that is Epsom salt. So when you are when I tell you, it's the magnesium I use the most. When you're sore from like going to the gym or just over it, it's good for baths. It's good for soaking, and it has topical uses. So topical meaning on top of the skin, right? Those are the main forms of magnesium. So again, I hope you were taking notes. If you didn't, just go back and listen to this. And, you get my views up. And take some notes so that you'll know which magnesium works best for you. Now, some additional tips when it comes to magnesium is it's best absorbed with food. So if you are taking it, try to eat something or drink something with it because that helps the absorption rate. And most supplements in general, if you're using supplements, your body only absorbs a certain percentage of that supplement. It's very rare that you have like a 100% absorption rate. That's just not how it works. So you do want to find ones that have better absorption rates, but also taking it with food helps to raise that absorption rate even more. You also want to avoid taking it with high doses of things like calcium, zinc, or iron. The last thing when it comes to magnesium supplementation is start low, okay? Because citrate is going to be the one that has the highest diuretic effect, but with all the other ones, you just can't be too careful. Okay, so start low so that you're not waking up in the middle of the night, running to the restroom, or even worse, out somewhere where you can't get to where you need to get to get it out. The last thing to think about is looking for third party testing. That's going to be super, super important. So that is everything on magnesium. I hope you enjoyed the 10th episode. We are halfway through the season. We got some more exciting things coming up. We talked about intermittent fasting today. We're going to talk about meal prepping. We're going to talk about the gut health, like I said. I mean, we just got so many other things to talk about. But I also want to hear from you. So definitely leave me comments on YouTube. If you follow me on Facebook, on Instagram. On Instagram is ChefBoyRDN. You can also find me on TikTok. Definitely go to those places. I post little clips and stuff. Leave me comments. Tell me what you want to hear from me. Tell me what you want to hear about. Tell me a episode that made you laugh. Tell me an episode where you really learned something. I want to hear all about it. Be sure to also share this with a friend. Be sure finally to like, share, subscribe, do all of the things wherever you get your podcast. It could be YouTube, it could be not Instagram, Apple Podcast, Spotify. We're also on Amazon Music. I mean, it's a couple other ones too. So wherever you get your podcast, definitely look for the Chef Boy RDN podcast, and I'll be here. I'll be here letting you get all this good information, learning something, laughing. I'm gonna keep drinking this coffee so I can wake up a little more. And I will talk to you next week here on the Chef Boy RDN podcast.